Hey guys, it's Bailey from Making Up the Midwest, and this is going to be a quick review and comparison of Smashbox's Full Exposure palette and the brand new Full Exposure mini palette. So if you want to see a review, swatches, and even a little demo, please continue watching. First, let's start with the full-size version. For $49, you receive this palette that contains 14 shades, a nice size mirror. This is kind of it feels a little sturdier than cardboard, but it's not like it's a plastic with a secure closure. It has a flip top. You open it up to find your 7 shades. This entire top row are not just shimmery, I'd say they're almost downright sparkly, and then a complete bottom row of mattes, along with a double-ended brush, one of which is more of a flat shader while the other is kind of a fluffy blender. And then in addition to all that, you get sort of a travel size full exposure mascara. One of the reasons it took me so long to purchase this palette is, in addition to looking like kind of an average run-of-the-mill neutral palette, you have your cooler kind of greyish neutrals and your more traditional brown toned, little slightly warmer neutrals. This whole top row of shimmer, when you swatch them, tend to have a little bit of fallout, especially when you're in store and other people's fingers have been in and out of there. Just haven't really felt compelled to get it. But when you actually get this home, get a chance to play with it on your eyes, I find that the fallout with these shimmery shades is very, very minimal, and these matte shades are very smooth and buttery. And to have the combination of the two in one palette is just perfect, because it's always fantastic to have those matte neutral shades to tone down the shimmer, whether it's blending in the crease or create an entirely matte shade on your eye for a great daytime look. That being said, I would compare this top row of shimmers to shadows that are very similar to Urban Decay's that have micro glitter. While these don't have nearly as much fallout, they are very, very shimmery, and I think that narrows down who this palette really is going to be meant for. The other nice thing about at least these shimmery shadows here is that they can be used wet. In fact, you'll see in the demo that I'll do using the Full Exposure mini palette, I do use them wet in a tutorial, and it really just serves to deepen them up like it does when you use a lot of shadows, but it doesn't change the texture of them at all, which is really fantastic, and it adds a little bit more versatility and functionality to this palette beyond just the 14 shades you see in the pan. And as far as the shade range goes, it's pretty universally flattering. While you do have both warm and cool neutrals, nothing gets too warm or too cool. They all sit right in the middle, so they're going to flatter a ton of different skin tones. One of the few downsides, in fact maybe the only downside to this palette, is the size. While you do get a ton of stuff, the brush, 14 shadows, a mascara, this has a little bit of bulk to it. While not more than any other neutral palette out there, when they came out with the Full Exposure palette, I mean, there is no contest. This is about the size of 10 business cards stacked on top of each other, so it's ultra portable, and unlike the full-size Full Exposure, it has a plastic enclosure, so you can hear that it actually snaps open. It has a mirror on the inside that I use to apply the look you see today, so that is functional as well. And then on the inside, you get 8 shadows, so you get more than half of the shades, kind of shadow shades, you'll see what I'm talking about soon, that come in the full-size palette, but this is less than half the price. This retails for $22, and granted, you do get a bunch of add-ons with the full-size Full Exposure palette. It really is all about the shadows when it comes down to it, so you're getting a lot of the shadows, but for way less than half the price. Now let's get into these shadows and a little demo of the look I'm wearing on my eyes today. The top row, once again, you have all of those shimmers. They are somewhat chunkier shimmers, but like I said before, they don't provide nearly as much fallout as you might think. I started the look I'm wearing today by putting this ultra shimmery champagne shade on my inner corner. This is the same ultra shimmery champagne that you will see in the Full Exposure palette. Then I moved into this shimmery gray, and I used a flat shader brush to pat that all over the rest of my eyelid. I do, when applying these shimmery shades, recommend using a more compact flat shader, because using something that's a little fluffier, like say this, is going to kick up a little bit more fallout than you might like. So I just say amp up the pigmentation and get a little bit more precise coverage by using a flat shader brush like this, especially when working with these shimmers. So I applied that all over my outer corner of both eyes. Oh, and I also used the matte cream here on my brow bone. It's a perfect brow bone shade. Then I moved into using a fluffier brush, this sort of light camel color, and I swept that through my crease. This is one of the best friend blending shades you will ever use. It makes blending shadows throughout the crease or on your eyes in general a breeze. It's beautiful. And then to really deepen up the outer corner, I went into the cooler taupe over here right under the steely gray, and I used that to, like I said, deepen up the outer corner with a fluffy blending brush. Then once the look was all finished, you can see what it looks like. It's pretty, it's a little bit amped up for a daytime neutral for some, but to really take it to the next level and show you that you can get a somewhat more dramatic smoky eye, I applied the gray, the same gray that I put all over most of my eyelid. I applied it wet. You can see that it really does make a difference in really smoking out this look, so you can really see that versatility in action. So now that you can see that you get this fully functional, beautiful, compact palette for virtually half the price of the full size, just more of an abbreviated version, there are a few things that I want to point out in terms of differences between the two. You get slightly less product per shadow with this smaller palette. Believe it or not, these are 0.05 ounces less than the full-size version of these shadows, so you are getting slightly less product per shadow. And there are some very subtle shade differences, so that if you think you are getting sort of an exact duplicate just in a smaller form from the full-size version, you aren't quite. Specifically, the biggest difference I saw was in the steely gray that I used in the look I'm wearing today. Between the two kind of grays, shimmery grays that are in the full-size version, this didn't match either of them. It really falls in squarely in between the lighter and the darker, as you'll see in the swatch I'm flashing up. Likewise, the creams are actually different, believe it or not. While that definitely doesn't make a difference when put to use in application, I didn't find, there is a difference between those two, as well as between the kind of light camel-y shades that you'll see. One is a little bit lighter, one's a little bit darker, but once again, when you actually put them to the test and apply them, you really don't notice that much of a difference. Still, it is a difference worth noting if in the event that you're thinking this is going to exactly duplicate the full-size Smashbox exposure, whether you're wanting to completely replace it or whether you have one and hoping you get different shades in the smaller version. Just regardless of what you're after, it's something that's good to know before you buy. So, that being said, I would definitely recommend both of these palettes. I think both have a spot in any eyeshadow routine, especially for those that love neutral shadows. I think these shadows are very universally flattering for all skin tones. I think the decision in which one you buy will really lie more in where your needs are. If I had it to do all over again, I would probably just go for the smaller Smashbox full exposure because it means more to me to have the really key neutral shades in here and have it all come in this teeny tiny palette. It's super compact but very, very sturdy. It's so easy to take on the go and touch up. If, on the other hand, you are looking for the end-all be-all neutral palette in your collection, this is definitely a great way to go so long as you love kind of very shimmery shadows when it comes to those on the top row, because you do get 14 shadows, half shimmer, half matte. You get the double-ended brush, which is a very real, very practical, really nice brush, along with the travel size mascara, and it comes in a nice, sturdy, albeit a little bit bulkier palette than this one. And something else that is worth mentioning that comes with the full-size palette is this sort of chart where you can basically pick your eye shape, almond eyes, round eyes, upturned eyes, downturned eyes, whatever that may be, and it will give you 3 different looks for that eye shape and type. So this really will take you from start to finish, whether you are an eyeshadow newbie or an experienced pro. This palette kind of has it all. If that's something you're interested, I definitely think it's worth it, but for those that are just looking for a nice little addition to their neutral eyeshadow collection, this mini full exposure palette is thebomb.com. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this review and comparison helped you. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!